Good afternoon, welcome. Placertopia Live podcast. I'm Paul Godwin, your host, and this is Season 2, Episode 5. It's May 16th, 2024, here in a balmy Placerville, California. Pushing the 80s today. Gorgeous summer weather. We're live with a studio audience, and we're out here on YouTube at the Green Room Social Club in Placerville, California. We acknowledge that the Green Room and Placerville are located on the unceded traditional homelands of the Miwok, Maidu, and Nisenan people who have lived here for thousands of years, and live here today. In recognition, we acknowledge and mourn the painful history of genocide. We are honored to learn from and actively engage local tribes in our work. And with that in mind, our featured guest today is Kimberly Shining Star Petrie. She is... And she will be in conversation with our guest interviewer, Amira Godwin of Myrtle Tree Arts. So that'll be up in just a minute, and Amira will tell you all about Kimberly when she introduces her. We also have musical guests, Dogon. We will have Heather Beatty Spring from the Bookery, and I think she's got some surprise guests with her. Actually, we're going to need some small chairs. And we'll have Outdoors with Aiden McGuire. And we'll have Hop Up, Pop Up. It's a terrific show. We're so glad you could join us here or at home. Please welcome from Myrtle Tree Arts, Amira Godwin.
Thank you, Paul. I'm so happy to be here. Yes, I'm Amira Godwin. I'm co-founder of Myrtle Tree Arts and artistic director of the Ripe Area project that we've been working on for about a year now. It will be wrapping up with a culminating event on June 2nd. And part of that role that I have had on the project is to facilitate a cohort of talented artists that are working together to not only build a festival, but bring the community into their process and have been leading educational workshops. And Kimberly is one of those people. So come on up, Kimberly, and we'll tell the folks a little bit about you.
Hello.
Deeply honored to have you. I'll give a little intro. Kimberly Shining Star Petrie descends from the Tumale Nisenan Miwok, is chairwoman of the El Dorado Band of Miwok Indians, is a founding member and executive director of Cosumnes Culture and Waterways. We'll talk a little bit about that. And also cultural resource preservation officer for the El Dorado County Indian Council. And I know you are quite excited to be part of a first land back for your native lands, for your people. So Kimberly, I'm just so excited to hear, how did you get started with this role that many of people locally know you as a culture keeper? How did that get started in your life? I mean, was it in your upbringing or in your family, in an extended family, or how did you come by this?
Well, it's been a grand adventure. I've been Native my whole life, right? But I didn't always know what that meant. You know, I knew what they taught me in school. And, you know, the Lone Ranger on TV, for those of us that remember the Lone Ranger, which was not very accurate. I'd drive through my community. My father would say, that's your cousin, that's your cousin. And typically, if you're a Miwok person, you're related in some way, especially in our community here. I was about 17 when I started to seek the culture on my own behalf. And I went to the local Chappaday Indian Education Center that was located in El Dorado, California, and my great auntie Florence Thomas was the executive director of that program. She was very traditional. And I started sitting in these classes, and it's like, I know this. And they're teaching me, but I knew these things. And I couldn't tell you how I knew them. I think it was just part of who I was. And so I started teaching those classes. And then I started sitting on the councils that made decisions for Native people in my community. And I remember the elders coming to me and saying, Kimberly, I remember when your grandmother and your great-grandmother sat on these councils. And I didn't know that. Here I was carrying on the legacy of the women in my family listening here. And that was a true blessing. And shortly after that, I had one of my elders come to me and tell me I needed to be a storyteller. And I was like, what? And the beautiful thing about our elders is they see things in us that we don't necessarily see in ourselves. And what he was able to see that I was not aware of is he was the one that actually told me the first traditional story that I'd ever heard. But it lived in my head. And I didn't realize that. And he approached me a few times, and it's like, okay, what are you asking me to do? And he took me down, and he showed me what he did. It's like, oh, I could do that. And so I've worked for Clome Outdoor Discovery School since the turn of the century. I like saying that. Makes me sound wise, right? And so that's how I got on the path. And you start gleaning knowledge. And you can't just read a book, and you can't just know somebody. It is a life commitment. And I've spent my life sitting with my elders, going to ceremony, reading. You take reading with a grain of salt because a lot of our history was inaccurately recorded. The indigenous people of these lands, we had an oral tradition, so our history was kept here. And you could go to Grandma, and Grandma could tell you 5 generations. She could tell about your mother's 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 mother, and all the significant events that happened over the last 150 years. So I spent a lot of time with the elders, and they tell you, oh, honey, I don't know nothing. Until you're there and you're helping them clean their house, and you're out there pulling weeds, and they're like, yeah, that one there, that's squirrel tail. You pull that up, you peel that root back, best thing in the world for toothache. And so it's just the little bits like that. I started volunteering for American River Conservancy when I got out of high school. That was a long time ago, 1988, and I didn't realize that's when they started. They really got busy in 89 until they had their 25th anniversary. It was like, oh, does that make me old? And, I've participated. I've learned a lot from the classes and the programs that they offer, but I also helped teach and train a lot of their staff, and we've had a very intimate, connected relationship. It must have been about 2010, 2011, Michael Dotson was working for ARC. Well, before that, like all good things, it starts with a vision, right? So I'm going to the California 49er Festival. They invite us down there. They invite me down there to close out their program when they do their living history, and it's well done. And I'm turning around there across the Coloma Bridge, and I look up on the hill, and for a moment, I see a village. I see people doing cultural things, and in that moment, I know right here that it's going to be a living culture site. ARC is going to be involved, and it's not going to be there. And about 3 months later, I'm talking with Michael Dotson. He says, Kim, you got to come see Ladies Valley. This place is amazing. It's beautiful. It's perfect for what you want to do. I don't think I've ever told him what I've wanted to do. Because you can drive through this community and you see no Native representation. You do not see our stories. You do not see the long history that the people have had here. And that's my passion. So he tells me once, he tells me twice, he tells me 3 times. It's like, okay. And then Alan Ergott, who was then the executive director, called me up and said, Kimberly, we want to show you this piece of land. So he and Elena took me and my husband down to the property, and we're walking the land, and they're talking about what they see happening down there, and they're wondering what I might see happening down there, because typically American River Conservancy buys lands within riparian habitats. They put conservation easements on it, and they turn it over to Bureau of Land Management or Fish and Game to keep it in its natural state in perpetuity. I could get behind that. That just resonates with my being. And I told him, it's all well and good for you and I to sit here and talk about what we want for the land, but I have to spend time with the land and see what the land wants. And they said, fine. So Joseph and myself spent a few days down there on the land, and the land was agreeable, a little guarded. So then I went to our elders, I went to our people, I had some meetings, I talked to our spiritual people, and everybody was pretty supportive, because you don't just make a decision. Kimmy gets ideas. You can't just act on it when you're acting for the people. You have to have the people's support. And so I went to Alan and I asked him, if we started a nonprofit, would you turn that land over to us? And he said yes. He said, I can't tell you how strange it is to own a piece of property that so clearly belongs to you and your people. I will do everything in my power to make this happen. And that still carries weight. And so we went to work. We started a nonprofit. American River Conservancy was our fiscal sponsor. We got a grant. I had a great intern from Sac State who knows how to do all this, and he was priceless. Tristan Evans, he's in Canada now. And we got nonprofit status in 2013. And we've cared for that land. We have ceremony on that land. We removed non-natives. We introduced natives. We became part of the Kusumne Coalition because we have to protect that river. The Kusumne River is the only undammed river on the west side of the Sierra Nevadas. It's very significant. My great-grandmother's born about 1.5 miles downstream from this particular piece of land. It's for us, it's very holy, amazing experiences. I tell people it has the energy of Yosemite. If you've ever been to Yosemite, I mean, you get there and just the energy changes. And we have that. We have that 20 minutes from here. And so a lot of work and a lot of community support, a lot of partnering. And in 2022, we held a art auction. We had Laura Maloney, who was critical for that work. Thank you so much. She's a treasure. And Melissa Lobach. And we pulled together an event. We raised over $30,000. And American River Conservancy is doing the paperwork. And when they turn the land over, they're also going to give us at least $25,000 after the bills are paid. Because it takes money to take care of land. And it's such a gift. Mm-hmm. You know, it's such a gift.
Thank you for that. I really have just so much gratitude for the work that you're doing for your internal community, but also for those of us that are outside your circle. Tell me a little bit about the educational work that you do through story or through other forms of sharing.
So I've been very blessed that Creator's given me the ability to speak and to carry and to remember. So we carry traditional stories. Some of the stories we tell are hundreds, even thousands of years old. They help us be better, and we hear them from a different place when we tell a story. My work in the watershed, partnering with different agencies, it's very cool. On the coalition, we have all these people that are there, and they're all geeks, and I love geeks because we know what we know, right? And we're passionate about it, and you come and you tell me what you're really passionate about, and I can pull threads from your expertise, and I pull that into my story, so my story can be heard at a different level from different people. So, I tell a story about the watershed that gives, it doesn't matter if you're 6 years old or 60 years old, you're like, oh, of course. And most of us have been taught that in school, and we kind of know it and kind of get it, but once this story is told, you're like, oh, water is the connector of every living thing. And each and every one of us has a responsibility to care for that wherever we go. What we put on the earth, how we touch the earth, how we interact, it all affects the wholeness of the planet. And so to be able to tell that story and that be the takeaway, I do a lot of fourth grade programs. I tell people I'm very famous among fourth graders. But when you have a fourth grader tell you that you've changed my life, I will never look at the world the same. Or they're like, we know that, but I never understood it until you told me. And that's where it starts. We have to engage everybody, but they are the future. They are inheriting what we're giving them. In our world right now, it's a bit challenging. There's some really scary stuff going on in the world, and there's some really beautiful things going on in the world. And we have to give our young people hope, and we have to create tools for each of us to utilize. And so my tool is story. It's to be able to sit here and talk to you in a way that you hear it, that you're inspired to leave and take that into the world.
I know that's your goal, and it's just so aligned with what we want to get out of this project and what we want people to hear about water. So thank you for putting it in the form that it goes in a different part of the body, or the whole body at once. And as we said when we acknowledged where we are, that this land, Placerville, and the foothills around us are the ancestral homeland of the Miwok peoples, your peoples. And what do you want to see? You told us about the land back process. What would you like to see going forward as that is developed or extended?
You know, the work we're doing out there, we call it Koso Village because that's what is its indigenous name. And Koso is salmon, Umne is people, Kosumne is the Salmon People River. You cannot walk in that watershed without seeing our stories in the stones, because the only remnants of our history here is left in the stones. They're the only things that hold those stories. It's very important to me to share the indigenous responsibility to Mother Earth. You know, Creator made human beings to take care of the earth, take care of the water, so everything connected to the earth and the water can thrive. And when the earth and the species thrive, we thrive. And that's living in balance. So being able to share that story, but also have a place that people can come and touch the earth in a sacred way and understand that relationship, you know, and my people and all people. I think it's a very critical time in our history that we have to get the story out. I tell people it's a really good time to be Native. You know, we're reading land acknowledgements before we start a project. We have federal and state agencies saying we have to have meaningful consultation with Native tribes. Now, mind you, there's a long way to go. But it's my job to show up and lay that foundation so that my children and my children's children can come to the table. My father, one generation before me, he was not allowed at the table. You know, we couldn't sing our songs or dance or pray without being thrown in jail until 1978. And now we have state and federal agencies coming to us and saying, how'd you do that? Would you help us? And now we have a lot of funding coming in to support the capacity building. There's a lot of funds that are available to tribal people to train our tribal people. Some of them know, many of them don't, but I find that you know, they come there saying, I don't know anything, but then they come there, it's like, oh yeah, well, Uncle used to do it this way. And so we carry this knowledge, but we don't have it like over here, this is where we keep it. It's so much of who we are that we don't define it. But we're training our tribal folks across the state in land management and traditional burns. We're getting Native people to become fire bosses and doing traditional fire on the land. And that's gonna benefit. You know, we did Fireland last year, we're doing Ripe Area this year, and a lot of times people think that water and fire are opposites, and I think they're twins. You know, one does not make it without the other. They are so intertwined in one another that they depend on each other for their health, for the health of every living thing. So mine is just to share that story. So currently we're working on capacity building. We're a nonprofit. I work a full-time job to pay my mortgage. I'm the chair of my tribe. I'm the executive director of Kasumne Culture and Waterways, and I haven't quite figured out how to get paid to do what I do.
I'm trying to help you.
And so I've been putting that out there and putting in for a grant this week for capacity building to learn how to manage those large grants. We've received a few small grants that have been perfect because what we do doesn't take a lot of money. It takes time. But there are things that do take money, and I just can't even imagine where we could take this if I could dedicate all my time to this, and the programs that we could extend to our community, how we could go out in our community to our schools, to our local people, and further this story, because it's a story that needs to be told, and bigger than that, it's a story that needs to be heard.
So you've laid out so beautifully the parts of Culture Keeper that maybe weren't so clear in my mind, maybe for others, that the empowerment to come and be welcomed at the table generations onward, and to extend that to your own people so that they feel that they recognize their own knowledge and talents. And I see you also as such a talented artist and storyteller. And maybe just before we run out of time, tell us what you hope. You've said it a lot, but what you hope to achieve when you have a group of people and they're glued to your words. What do you want them to go away with or feel?
I want people to feel inspired and empowered. That every single one of us is capable of contributing to a better planet. You know, be the reason somebody smiles today. That's simple. You know, take care of the earth. How do you do that? If you don't know how to do that, find out. Let's talk. You know, I have things in my wheelhouse that I do. I certainly don't do it all. There are a lot of challenges in our world today. So it's finding our power. Each one of us has gifts, and those gifts are not the same, which is cool because we need diversity in the world. We need to recognize those diversities. We need to recognize and see each other, and we need to figure out where we're going as a tribe, as a community, as a county, as a country, as people who occupy this planet. Where are we going? And together we have to divine how we're going to get there. And we are not all going to agree on the onset. And it's going to take all of us working together to get to where we want to be.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us.
You good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. Welcome back to Placertopia Live. I have with me Miguel Noya from Venezuela. We met in 1981 in Boston, and we formed the band Dogon, which was not only a mystical star seed African tribe from West Mali, but an anagram of our two names, Godwin and Noya, no God. But we were not very nihilist, and so we reversed it, and it was Dogon. And it fit with our interest in the stars and the Sirius planet and all things cosmic. This song is called Increado, and it comes from 1989. Dogon. And Dogon will be back in the second part of the show. Thanks so much. Okay, we're back. Yeah, we have from the Bookery, Placerville, Heather Beatty Spring, and her daughters, Lucy and Polly.
Hi, Paul. Hi, everybody. This time we're really making it a family affair. Like we did, I remembered it was the season finale last season. The girls came up with me and we sang a solstice song.
That's right.
Yeah, so I didn't do that on purpose. It just felt really festive, and I like to have the kids with me when things feel festive. So they're joining me today to talk about some books.
Awesome.
So I knew Kimberly Shining Star Petrie was going to be talking, and I love listening to her tell her stories. So that reminded me of a book that I haven't gotten all the way through yet, but it's a really important book. I've maybe brought it up before, Tending the Wild, Native American Knowledge and the Management of California's Natural Resources by M. Cat Anderson. And as you can see, have you read this, Paul?
No.
Okay, but you've seen it.
Yes.
This is a hefty book. It's full of just scholarly information, many, many interviews with Native people of all generations, and a lot of historical references as well. This book is amazing. I highly recommend it if you've read Braiding Sweetgrass, which got super popular a few years ago. Even though it was written before that, I feel like a few years ago it really exploded. People were coming in the bookstore asking for it. We never had it used. It was almost kind of annoying how much I was hearing Braiding Sweetgrass. I didn't know what it was. Then I listened to I started the audiobook from the library, immediately had to buy it, read the rest myself. She reads the audiobook herself, Robin Wall Kimmerer, the author of this, and her voice is so soothing and beautiful. She's also kind of got that storyteller, poet voice. The girls listened with me, and we were all enjoying it so much that I got a copy, and we love this book. So these two books in tandem have kind of reshaped our lives and our thinking in a lot of ways, as I feel like they probably do for a lot of people that get a hold of this kind of knowledge. It's known now in like the nature community as traditional ecological knowledge, which a lot of you are probably familiar with. And so to me, this is like the poetic entry into that world, because she is a scholar and a poet and also a scientist. So she's combining those two worlds of kind of the mythic and spiritual side of her Native American roots with the very fact-based, practice-based scientific process that she uses to explore the natural world. And then this book is like, brings us home to California, takes us all the way to our ancient ancestors, the Native people that lived here for at least 12 to 15,000 years before European contact, and the fact that they were living the exact kind of reciprocal relationship that Kimmerer talks about here in California and tending our land. A lot of people think it was like wild land when Europeans came, and it was wild to some extent, but it wasn't just untouched by any means. It was very carefully tended. So anyway.
Right. That notion of wilderness that became so popular, like the with John Muir and the protection of Yosemite, and saying,
Exactly.
oh, wilderness, we need wilderness. Talk about that for just a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, the difference between that and what the natives were actually doing with the land.
Absolutely. This book actually starts out in the intro talking about John Muir and how he describes these beautiful, vast meadows of flowers as untouched wilderness, and they were absolutely there because native people were literally spreading seeds to help these meadows flourish, and many other practices, cultural practices and land practices that they were doing to be able to have the resources that John Muir and a lot of earlier explorers saw on this land and just marveled at, like, what a rich, abundant land. Well, that was very carefully planned. So anyway, that brings me to the girls. So Polly, if you want to lean forward, what did you start in October this year?
This year in October, I started doing homeschool. The first thing that I wanted to learn about were the native tribes of California, and so first I learned about the Chumash tribe. And most of where I got my information was from books, and this is a really fun book to read.
Will you read the title?
It's called Many Worlds, Native Life Along the Anza Trail. And it's super fun because it's got activities, like you can do mazes, word searches. And this is my favorite because it's kind of like a guessing game where it's like what they hunted and it's the animals and the stuff they used. And it's really cool because it's like showing what they made to hunt. And
Wait, give us an example.
like the bow and arrow or the net, which a net catches fish normally. And then the animals that they were mostly catching were rabbits, squirrels, deer, quails, sea lions, and fish. And then it's really fun and also kind of informative. And then my next book is called Grass and Games and Moon Races. And it's about games and toys that they would make in the tribes. And so it's really interesting because it's like what the children did. And
Did you ever try any of them that you saw?
I didn't, but
Okay.
I want to
That's
try.
your assignment for homeschool
Tell them which one you
in
want to try.
June.
I want to try this one. It's called. It's like hoops and sticks. It's called Hoops and Sticks, and it's these hoops that are made out of either oak or is it
Willow?
or lilac.
Okay, we have an authority here in the
Trees.
studio still with Kimberly.
And
So she can
then
just call out if she knows any of
this
these
is
games.
a Maidu game.
Oh, it's a Maidu game. Did you ever play it, Kimberly?
Nice.
Is it fun?
It is fun. And while it's a game, it's also preparing young people for life because as you're playing with the hoop and the stick and you're throwing it,
Yeah.
your sister moves it, and it's really hard to get
Yeah.
there. But then you get it where you can plant it every time. Though then she moves it way back there, and then once you master that, then she rolls it down the hill. And so then you have to try and get it through the hoop. And so all this time you're playing, but you're developing this hunting muscles, and you're getting eye-hand coordination and strength.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we found interesting, right?
So,
it's a moving target.
yeah, it's like you would throw the little hoop, and you would try, or you would roll it, and you would try to throw the stick through it
While it's moving.
when it's moving.
Yep.
And so that's a really interesting thing in this book, and I recommend this book if you're trying to learn about native tribes.
I think I thought I invented that game when we had hula hoops down by the river.
You didn't make yours out of a lilac.
No, I didn't. But I thought I invented that game. Okay.
And then next, this is the book
Oh, here, I'll hold
that
these for you.
I got most of my information from, and it's called The Chumash Indians or Native Americans. And it is super informative, and like I learned that they had a money system, and they made what they needed themselves, or they traded with one another. In some societies, when they didn't use money. But the Chumash tribe, however, started using money more than 1,000 years ago. They needed a money system because their society was very complex, because they lived in different surroundings with different natural resources. Chumash people tended to specialize in one thing. There were people who specialized in making beads, headdresses, tobacco, nets, baskets, leather tools, or canoes. They had to buy and sell from each other to get the goods they needed. And so that I thought was really interesting because, like, even back in the day, we've always had money.
Well, tell them what their money was
And
like.
the money wasn't like modern money now, because what they used for money was these little black shells that were like, they would wear them on a necklace. They had all these shells, and they had fairs, and they would trade their shells or their money for handmade stuff. And that I thought was just super interesting. And then another thing that I thought was really interesting was their beliefs. And I liked this because I feel like it's just really cool and like kind of creepy. But according to a Chumash myth, the world was made up of 3 layers. The top layer rested on the wings of a giant eagle. In this layer lived powerful supernatural beings, including the moon, the morning star, and the sun. People lived in the middle layer. Underneath the human world lived dangerous creatures who crept up at night.
And that still happens to this day.
Yeah, and you could see her dad and her with the dangerous creatures.
Yeah. The subterranean tunnels under Placerville. I think you were able to exit the Bookery and wind up somewhere back on Pacific Street. And where we live on Myrtle, we believe there is a poltergeist. Is related to the Jewish cemetery across the way. It doesn't seem malevolent or anything, but it does like shake the garage studio on occasion in the middle of the night. When David Rothenberg was here, it shook the place he was sleeping multiple times each night. I've encountered it. It sounds very much like a huge creature landing on the roof of the garage. I mean, and it's got so much weight to it, and then you go right outside and you look, and there's nothing there at all. Wow. So,
that's pretty
yes,
cool.
Mythical, strange creatures around our town. Polly,
sure.
That was just awesome. Thank you, yeah. Wow.
Do we have a minute for Lucy to read a quick passage?
Of course.
Okay,
we
cool.
have plenty of time.
Okay, Lucy.
We're stretching out today. We're not letting the clock run this show today. So, Lucy.
Would you want to show them the cover of this one?
Sure. So, I read this book about a year ago, and it's called Braiding Sweetgrass for Young Adults. It's kind of just like, I guess, a simplified version of the other one, and it, well, I found this quote that I really liked when the author is talking about how she used to pick strawberries with her father, and she says, he thought a wild strawberry shortcake was the best possible present. It was a gift that could never be bought. The gift of berries was from the fields themselves, not from us. Our gift was time, attention, care, and red-stained fingers. Heartberries indeed. I liked this quote because it perfectly shows the whole, like the point of the book, that nature's its own gift, and that, I don't know. I just really like that quote.
Lucy, I don't know if I was spacing out or you were going a little fast. Could you read it again a little more slowly? Such a beautiful quote. Would you read it again?
Sure.
It's not very long. Or do you have other portion you're reading?
No.
No, okay, try again.
Sure. He thought a wild strawberry shortcake was the best possible present. It was a gift that could never be bought. The gift of berries was from the fields themselves, not from us. Our gift was time, attention, care, and red-stained fingers. Heartberries indeed. And she says that last bit because she calls strawberries heartberries. In her native language. Yeah, in her native language. Mm-hmm.
Wow, beautiful. Lucy, Polly, and Heather from the Bookery. The Bookery's been just a huge the heart and soul of Main Street, I think, for 40 years. And you guys also operate a kind of primitive monetary system, too. Kind of there's barter. There's barter is possible, I'll tell you. And, there's trade. And there's an ancient cash register, which doesn't really function. And so thanks for being part of Placertopia Live. Thanks for coming on the show. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, girls. We can go down.
He's here. I just... Yeah, this groovy music on the transition, before I forget, is Robert Uriendal and Paul Godwin on New Dog Records, actually, newdogrecords.com. With us today and many days over the last 2 seasons is Aidan McGuire, man about town, man about the woods, outdoors with Aidan, the woods and the rivers, the rock faces, the parks. What's going on, buddy?
It's springtime, and
Big time.
Yeah, it's a perfect time to be outdoors. Have you been spending much time outdoors lately?
Yeah, I've been going to the allergy festival they have at Wakamatsu Farm. It's been really brought to you by Zyrtec and Cetirizine, all the off-label Benadryls that you can get at grocery outlet.
Exactly.
And, anyway, so it's been a real incredible pollen-rich spring here in the foothills.
I know you've been into some underwater explorations around the ponds and riparian areas lately, and I just have to say that there's no airborne allergies underwater.
Okay, perfect.
So that's my tip for the day.
Okay, that's good. So, because the hydrophones that we've been dropping microphones underwater at Wakamatsu Pond. Miguel Noy and I were out there this week with a workshop for ripe area, and but actually the hydrophone is more sensitive to the plant sounds and the little creature sounds than the human ear. Hydrophones, as I understand, were developed for underwater photographers. So they were already underwater photographing, and they wanted to be able to gather the sounds.
Yeah.
But they're actually more sensitive. But so I haven't been going under myself physically, but I should, because above ground it's been torture.
Yeah.
Just the amount of pollen. But anyway, go ahead.
I have
Let's
some
not
scuba
talk
diving
about my
gear.
problems.
No,
let's talk about your
Talk about my problems?
your problems.
My problems.
Yeah.
My knee's a bit buggered up, but anyway.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so it is springtime, and with that comes access to lots of outdoor activities. So, if in doubt, just get out. It's always going to be better than you think it is. And there's lots of places to go walking and hiking and mountain biking. Maybe you need to take the Zyrtec before you go there. Yeah. But, places like Cronin Ranch, beautiful hiking, amazing wildflowers, an amazing ARC gift to us all. And places like Sly Park are back in season, and you can go walk, hike, ride your bike around there. And that's always lovely. I don't know if have you ever been to the American Canyon off of in Cool, which
in
is
Greenwood,
it's
in Cool.
yeah.
You're in Cool, and you go on the trails
193.
or the paved.
Yeah, no, not
Oh no,
actually
you
there.
go up towards Greenwood.
Yeah, if you go
towards
between Georgetown and
You
Cool.
have talked about this hike
Yeah.
for so long,
And
and
it
you've
is-
intimidated me with it a little.
It's absolutely gorgeous,
Tell
and there's
them
some really
why.
lovely hiking out there, and I'd recommend that anybody go try it. It's called the American Canyon Trail. It's a system of trails, but there's a loop trail. It's about 6.5 miles, and it's absolutely fabulous, and it's just some of the most beautiful areas that we have at this elevation, I think. So I really, really strongly recommend that. The other thing that's going on right now that I think is certainly worth talking about is the rivers, because the rivers are up and the kayakers and rafters are just getting going. But I think it's important to note that this time of year is more for the experienced kayakers and rafters. Like, what we've done, C2G, is like 3,500 CFM, which is probably 3 times what we did it at. So
the most we did was 1,800 CFM,
yeah, okay,
I think.
yeah.
And that was fast.
Yeah. So I think it's great. At our next segment, perhaps, I want to talk more about the rivers. But the rivers are beautiful right now. They're gorgeous. They're in full natural flow. But they are cold and they are fast. And so you really need a bit more expertise to be able to go out there.
There's actually signs along 49, some of those highway signs that say something like, do you remember the exact quote? It's something like, river is frigid and you may die. That kind of thing. It's sort of like people have frozen or drowned in freezing water. So it is not a joke. Don't just get in there and float around right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly places where you can do that, but every year there's, almost every year it seems like there's somebody that ends up jumping in and getting washed downstream and jammed under a rock and freezing to death. And so the rivers are beautiful.
Have you floated yet lately?
I think it's been about a month or so. I
Really?
did it with a wetsuit, like in cold conditions, but I'm waiting till
Yeah.
it warms up. I'm kind of a lightweight when it comes to that, and I like to be warm. I like it when it's 104 degrees and we can float around and it's lovely.
And the rafting companies are just getting going.
They're just getting going.
Why don't you throw out a little to the audience, give them a few ideas of where to go, what they can do to hook up with some rafting. And,
Yeah, the rafting companies, we have multiple rafting companies within the Coloma Lotus area. Motherlode, that I do a little work for on their ropes courses, which is fun. All Outdoors, which is who Violet, my daughter, works for. And Arda, there's just a whole bunch of them, and they're really top-class organizations. They really take the environment seriously. They really do a great job, considering how many people we send down the river. The river shores and the rivers still look immaculate because they really do a great job of managing that. And it's a great source of joy for a lot of people to go rafting.
Yeah, truly, they have camping and yurts, and they're really happy to hook you up. You can just call any one of them and book a trip and stay over. If you're hearing this outside the area, come on in. And also, our friend Justin Boyd was here last show from Marco's Cafe, which will be reopening at the Lotus store, which is amazing. They're building a kitchen in there, so that's going to be a whole scene with live music. And
Marco's is reopening as
a different
Troublemakers.
Troublemaker. So just a lot going on down there.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, it's a great place in summer. And I was thinking maybe next time we'll talk more about river rafting. The other thing is climbing, of course, which is sort of my first love. Climbing and bouldering this time of year is amazing because you can get to all kinds of places, whether you want to climb, boulder, just walk around and look at these vast cliffs everywhere.
We haven't talked about bouldering that much. Why don't you tell people what that is and where they could go? What's a good early,
so the idea of
point?
bouldering is that what we're doing is you're not climbing with ropes. You're climbing on rocks that are, maybe as high as this roof or less. Oftentimes they're only 10 feet. But the idea is with bouldering, you can jump off. And people bring these mattresses kind of things, so these commercial sort of mattresses that wrap up, you can wear as a backpack, and they spread those down there. It's more of a social thing. People, like especially a lot of young climbers, they love to go out and hang out at a boulder, and they have fun with it. So it's a great thing that you can do. You can practice bouldering down at the climbing gyms, or you can just find friends that go out and boulder. But the idea is that you're doing these rock climbing moves, but you're doing them without a rope, with the idea that if you can't quite do the move 8 feet up, you can jump off and you've got these pads to jump down on.
Huh.
So it's really fun. It's maybe not so good for an old guy because I'd probably break something. but
Where could they go?
Oh, well, many places. Like all of the climbing areas like Sugarloaf, Phantom Spires, Lover's Leap, they all also have, cliffs are in the process of always falling down. So there's big chunks of cliffs that have fallen down over thousands of years, and now they're sitting at the bottom forming boulders. So there's lots of places like that.
Awesome. Very
Yeah.
cool. I feel like we kind of buzzed by the mountain biking. I don't know what else you've got in store.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll say that you mentioned Cronin Ranch.
Yeah.
This is like such a resource for mountain biking.
Yeah.
There's wide Jeep tracks, but there's also single track, like
Right.
gorgeous single track.
Yeah. And not
it's
particularly
great
difficult or
conditions.
technical.
It's not.
you know?
Yeah, it's not particularly technical,
Yeah.
but it can be technical.
Yeah.
Along the river there. Also, you can do a 2-car version, which you and I tried to do, or we did something like that, where you
Till I
can
got a
come
flat
in
tire.
at Magnolia,
Yeah.
and you can go all the way down to Folsom
Yeah.
Lake at Salmon Falls
Yeah.
Dam, or Salmon Falls Bridge, and with 2 cars, and you can basically be going downhill almost the whole way, which
I
is
mean, I think
fantastic.
it's like 16 miles of downhill on
Yeah.
single track trails. You can put in at Greenwood and go past Magnolia and then go to Cronin Ranch and then all the way down along the river down
Yeah.
to Salmon Falls, which is what you and I did, but I got a flat tire and I had
That's
to
right. You
push my bike.
ruined our day,
I did ruin my day.
actually.
I did. I
But
think I set a new record for the bike pushed for the most miles.
I think you really did.
Yeah.
And
you know.
then you mentioned Sly Park. Again, Sly Park is fantastic. There's single track, there's Jeep road up
Yeah.
there. And those are just like 2 really great meccas. But let's not forget the El Dorado Trail, which is 16 miles
Yeah.
or 18 miles coming
Yeah.
through here from Camino all the
Yeah.
way down to the town of El Dorado.
And several sections of that are really beautiful.
And there's dirt track after that all the way
Yeah.
to Shingle.
Yeah.
And from Shingle, you drive maybe a couple of miles to South Shingle Community Center, and you can get back on there and go all the way to Latrobe. And I've never done it, but from Latrobe, you can get all the way to Folsom to Costco. And there's a stretch there that is absolutely fantastic along the railroad tracks. So there's like so much good biking here.
Yeah. And this is like the time of year to do it because, in another month or 2, everything's so hot that you really need to be heading up the hill. And in winter, it can be a little bit wet and Morecambe weather. But this time of year, it's just great, and all of the flowers are out, and it's beautiful. I did want to talk about actually a couple of things to do with maybe the joys, but some of the perils of just getting outdoors.
Oh, it's the safety talk, as Zach
Yeah.
Pangborn would
Yeah.
say.
Well, there's a
We
couple of
haven't had
things.
him on the show. This is a terrible crime. We should have whatever happened to Philip Morganelli and I forgot his alias, Art on Art, with Orrin Miller. They should have Zach Pangborn. Okay, next season, we promise. Okay, what do you got? What were we
the good
talking
news or the
about?
bad news first?
Oh, this is the safety talk.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, we'll go with the safety
I'm
talk,
going to
yeah.
look at Instagram.
So I think my biggest worry when I'm out and hiking about, especially as the weather starts getting warm, is actually rattlesnakes. Those are the ones you got to be careful of. And I'd say if there's a couple of things I'd say is never walk through tall grass, right? Especially when it's getting warm. You always want to be able to see your feet because rattlesnakes are just, they're very commonplace. And this time of year, they're out sunning themselves. They're cold-blooded creatures, so they come out when the sun is warm during the day, and they come out oftentimes on the trails, and they warm themselves, and then they go back underneath their rocks. So, it's always best, especially when the grasses are really tall like this and everything is beautiful. Sometimes there's a tendency just to sort of strike off and head across from one trail to another. And I always think it's not a good idea because you just can't see your feet, and you just need to be able to do that because a rattlesnake bite is not fatal, but it's really a bummer. It'll mess
What
you
do
up.
they do? What
Well-
do you do if you get bit?
You don't do a whole lot. You don't cut it open, and you don't try to suck out the venom.
Oh, that's what I
And
would've
what you
done.
do is basically sort of immobilize the place as much as you can, and you get yourself to the hospital so you can get anti-venom in under 4 hours is what you really want to do. So a lot of the things that you hear about, like digging things open and sucking the venom out, that's all sort of like old stuff that's not done anymore. We don't do that.
Okay.
So it's just, you're trying to get the person without moving around too much. And you can actually put maybe just a mild sort of restricting band on there to stop the venom from getting absorbed. But the best idea is just to be alert for rattlesnakes. I mean, I just ran into one. I've run into 2 in the last 3 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
What size?
Both of them were, well, actually one of them was fairly good size, maybe 4 feet long, but only about, they don't get really long. They get to about 4 or 5 feet, but they get really thick.
Whoa.
Really thick, just like this.
Wow.
And these ones were fairly young, but there's discussion about whether the young ones are actually more dangerous because they can't control how much venom they give. The best idea is just to sort of be alert for it, and when you're walking around, just look for that.
Okay.
Poison oak. Poison oak is
oak.
poison
as,
oak
Miguel
is,
Noyo calls it poison oak.
like go down to
Yeah.
Cronin Ranch and there's just like acres of it. It's really impressive. But poison oak is something you just have to keep an eye open for. Leaves of 3, let it be. Like the plants always have 3 leaves on them. So you always have to just kind of watch out for that. And this time of year, oftentimes it kind of grows over the trails a little bit. You go and do Upper Red Shack or something like that. And there'll be little strands of it coming out. So what would you do if you got poison?
It is rough on the bike as well because
Yeah.
you get these strands that kind of are not
Yeah.
trimmed off the single track trails. So they
And what
get
do you do
ya.
if you get home and you've
So
got
what
poison
I
oak?
do is I go home and I use a product called Technu.
Yeah.
And Technu is a kind of oily, milky fluid that you put on there. You leave it on for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then you rinse it off.
Yeah.
And it takes the oils away.
Yeah.
And the good news is you can use Technu. If you blow it and you don't realize you had the poison oak, but you start to get the rash, say the next day or even 2 days later, you can still use Technu and it will still remove the oils.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you probably now have it on your bed sheets
Yeah.
and your other clothing, but you
Yeah.
can use Technu in the washing machine too and wash off the clothes that you wore. We've had just a lot of talk of poison oak on this show.
Yeah.
Heather Beatty Spring was here talking about
I mean,
it
I think the thing to
last show.
do is like if you go out and play or you
Yeah.
go out and run or you go out and mountain bike and you're
Yeah.
like, maybe I got some poison oak. The thing is come home and shower and wash the areas just to be on the safe side. Also be really careful about clothing. When I used to work in pediatrics, I saw loads and loads of people with poison oak all over their face. And what they'd done is had it on their shirt and then they took their shirt off and they smear it all over their face unbeknownst to them and they get terrible poison oak.
This is also true. And also, if you are lucky enough to have a hot tub, not recommended after your
Yeah.
outdoor adventure when you
Yeah.
think you might have been exposed.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to jump in the hot tub. Terrible idea. Even a bathtub,
Yeah.
bad idea.
You spread it to
Shower
your
is
friends
okay.
that way.
Shower's okay.
Yeah. Showers are good. Showers
Okay,
are good.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's poison oak, rattlesnakes are the 2 things you want. The one that I think we should probably talk about also because it's been in the news lately is mountain lions, and I think that most of the time, I've spent thousands of hours tromping around the backcountry. I've seen a mountain lion once. And that was because my dog was chasing it. But there are some sort of common sense things that you probably shouldn't do. You shouldn't be hiking alone at dusk or dawn. And you should, just be careful not to put yourself in those situations where it's a hunting terrain and it's the time of night when they're coming out. Most of the time, you go to Cronin Ranch, you go to, Magnolia or Greenwood or all of those things, you are never going to see a mountain lion. But it's always good to be aware that they are, they're predators and they're around here. And you have to just sort of
What do we
use some
do?
common sense.
What do we do? We make some sound.
Yeah.
That's real good. Their hearing is really good.
Yeah.
They hear us. So don't be tiptoeing around at
Yeah.
dusk. Tromp.
Yeah.
Let your feet make some sound. Tromp. Sing. Make a little sound. They'll very, very likely stay away. Of course, we all know the national news story that occurred just a month ago or so here in Georgetown, a terrible fatal attack, and they were doing the right things, and they really did their best. It was the first fatal attack in 20 years in California. It's very unusual.
Yeah.
Everyone's asking, everyone's citing them and putting it on Nextdoor and Facebook, and everyone's sort of wondering, is it worse? Is it the drought? Well, the mountain lion follow the deer typically, so they're hunting, and they're hunting through the winter, and then the deer wind up going to higher and higher elevation as the food disappears lower, and the mountain lion come up, and so they come up the valleys, and they get higher and higher, closer to human habitation typically. So that's a normal thing
Yeah.
that happens. But I haven't heard anyone scientists say that it's particularly worse this year, or that human-caused environmental
one of the things
change
that-
has caused this. We don't know.
Yeah, I think we see a lot more of them because more people have, what's that called, doorbell, those little
They have
cameras everywhere.
cameras of
Right, so there's more
wildlife
recordings
camera.
of them. I mean, they've always been around. They're always doing their thing. They're not really looking for chasing after human beings. They are shy. They want to keep away from us, But you don't put yourself in those just maybe slightly higher risk situations. At the end of the day, driving to an area to go hike, especially texting on your cell phone, is 10 times more dangerous than the likelihood of seeing a mountain lion.
Good
But
call.
it's worth messing up.
I feel like if we only had some Native Americans here in the studio, wouldn't that be amazing? And they would have some secret wisdom about the mountain lion or the rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
Wait, who's that over there? It's Joseph Speck and Kimberly Shining Star Petrie. Anybody have any quick? You want to hop up? Any quick advice before we let the white guy go? Okay. Yeah. So the fires have not been good for the human interaction with the mountain lions, you're saying.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. Good.
Yeah.
All right. I thought you had a secret solution. Like Kimberly would be like, "Oh, that's a plant called squirrel tail. I dangle that from my ear and the mouth." This is very good. Joseph told us the mountain lion are in the trees, and that's really true. We lived in Pleasant Valley, and they came for our sheep and goats once a week, and I heard this terrible sound one night after a few of the sheep had been picked off. And I thought, oh, that's the sheep crying out, and I'll try to imitate the sound. It's kind of like, and I thought it was the sheep getting killed, and I went out there, and I saw this poor sheep was lying there with its neck in a very unusual position. It was like looking 270 degrees the wrong way, and then I learned later that was the sound the mountain lion makes, actually. And what I didn't realize is what Joseph just told us, which is that I was standing under a tree, and the lion that had killed that sheep was very likely right above me in that tree, because there was no time for it to get away from when I went out there. And I believe that was one of my near-death experiences, actually. So watch out in the trees. Good call. Aiden, it's
let me
been
finish
terrific.
out- can I
Yes,
finish on a
finish
positive
out.
note?
Yes. Is this more bad things that can happen
No,
when outdoors?
we're going to finish on a positive
Go ahead,
note.
positive note.
Swifts and swallows.
Nope.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Swifts and swallows, those little birds with the forked
Swifts,
tails, right?
swallows.
And they're amazing, and they're back in spring. And swallows, like a great place to go look at swallows is the Highway 49 bridge that crosses over the South Fork of the American River in Coloma. And they come back every year, and all of their nests, if you just go down to the river's edge, all of their nests are along there.
Wonderful.
And they come back every year, and it's just amazing to watch them. They're flying around, they're coming into their nests, and so forth. The swifts, which are very like swallows, this time of year when you're out rock climbing, the swifts are always dive bombing each other, and they're flying around right off, 1,000 feet off the air. And do you know what swifts do that I think no other species on Earth does?
No.
they mate in midair.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so
You can do that in Las Vegas now, though.
really without ropes? Probably not.
Yeah, they have the hang. What do you call it? It's
Oh yeah. Yeah, don't go there. Yeah, this is
Amira's
a family
here
show.
to say don't go there. Okay,
Aerial mating is a
aerial
mating. Is
mating.
a
They
thing.
will have it. They're gonna have it in Vegas. Okay.
And what they do is you'll see them swirling around, and then they'll join, and they're actually mating, and they'll drop 1,000 feet, and at the last 100 feet they'll split off, and that's what they do. And it's incredible to see if you've never seen it, and if you haven't, it's probably the only
love
species in the world where premature ejaculation is a good thing. But anyway, okay. On that note,
Sorry. And
we'll keep it clean.
we're good thing there's a
Yeah.
time delay. There's a 30-second delay.
Yeah, we're
before
talking
we
nature here. It's just
Get
nature.
to
It's just
Spotify.
nature. It's beautiful.
Aidan McGuire, you really should have a website, I think, so that we could point them to aidanmcguire.com. And there probably is one, and some poor schmo is going to be getting your email. Thanks for joining
Great
us.
to see you, brother.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's been great having you. These seasons transition.
In a hollow in the wood, a little man in a speckled hood. He seems a bird who never flies, a mystery man who never dies. Will you shake his hand? Will you shake his hand? Will you shake his hand?
talk about the frogs. Yeah, good. Hey, we're back.
Hello.
This is Miguel Noya. He's visiting from Venezuela. Please welcome him.
Hello, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So how do you like our fair city?
What's your first city?
How do you like our town, our region?
Oh, marvelous. I've been visiting Placerville since 2013.
Yeah, 2013 you began coming up here,
Yeah.
and we began recording together at Talking Tree Ranch.
Yeah.
That was where the aforementioned mountain lion attacks were occurring. Dogon, we met in 1981, and we've performed throughout the world, a bunch in Venezuela, and a bunch in Europe, but not that much in America. Well, there was a sweet spot there in the late 90s around San Francisco, and we ran the Ambient Brunch Tour, which we had Janot and Spool, and we also had Banco de Gaia, and Bossa Cuca Nova, and we toured up and down the West Coast all together and played some shows.
Yeah, Vancouver, Portland.
Vancouver was really cool.
Portland,
They had
Seattle, and I think it's that really nice venue in San Francisco.
The Great American Music
Great
Hall.
American Music
They played
Hall,
there.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But Vancouver took it because they had the first pot store I ever walked in. It was cherry blossom season, and I was walking in the beautiful neighborhood of Vancouver, and I saw this storefront, and it was covered with pot plants, and the smoke was pouring out, and I was like, what is this? This must be Canada. But I think it's just Vancouver, actually. It's not the rest of Canada. Anyway, I mentioned that because we've been generously supported by the Placerville Cannabis Community Fund.
Wow.
So thanks to them. The clubs in town, when they were permitted to join our community, agreed to take 3%, I believe, of their net and give it to nonprofits and stuff like that. So they're helping support a lot of great organizations. That said, Mr. Noya, what have you been doing here? Tell us about what you've been doing on this particular trip. I missed some of the Wayback Machine. I'm going to do a little. I'm going to do a quick one. 2013, Smallucinations. 2014, Smallucinations Volume 2. 2015, All My Relations at Peace. A phrase borrowed from the Native Americans that I found graffitied on the Cosumnes River Bridge at Highway 16. All My Relations at Peace. Beautiful album. We have it here for you.
Okay.
If you want to pick up. 2015, 2016.
We went on tour.
We went on tour in Europe.
To Europe, yeah. We met.
But we also have this one from Dogon, which is actually Noya, Godwin, and Uriandal, whose music you've been hearing on Placertopia Live for all year. This is called Samlaku. Was recorded on tour, well, after the tour.
2018.
Which?
Summer 2018.
2018. In Estonia. Okay. And then 2 years ago, Pleiades, which is the piece we just played, Taigete, named by you. What is Taigete?
Taigete is one of the stars of the Pleiades system, I guess.
One of the seven sisters, Taigete. So we did that cosmic record right here in downtown Placerville at Myrtle Tree Arts. And that's available on all the Spotify and Bandcamp and all that stuff. We don't have hard copies of that yet. So what have you been doing this trip?
Okay, this trip is about frogs, insects, birds, and ponds. We did this idea of bringing the sounds. My latest research is about, which is an influence by someone in Europe, because I've been doing field recordings for many, many years, to put out an album that were only sounds from nature. And that album is called Biophony.
Biophony. Miguel Noya is out there on the streaming systems.
Yeah, Biophony is this living sounds of a region. So the biophony of Venezuela is brought here and put it to work with the biophony, of course, recorded with the biophony of Wakamatsu. In this case, we inserted some speakers with the sounds of frogs from Venezuela, and the idea was to try to record the pond using a hydrophone and see what the response of the pond was going to be. It was amazing.
And what happened?
Yeah.
What did happen?
Yeah, it happens that some living beings started to sing back.
It did happen.
Yeah, and this, the exploration goes further. It's like for the next June the 2nd, I will have like, of course, Paul has this beautiful piece called Music for 33 Drain Pipes. Amazing. And there's going to be another sound installation with crickets, birds, and different frogs again, outdoors. And the idea is that the audience will be able to listen the singing of two biophonies together.
Right.
Yeah.
So 12:15, around noon, at the Wakamatsu Pond. This is all on June 2nd as part of Ripe Area. And there will be Dogon Live with special guest Darren Coelho Spring on slide guitar. The pond of Wakamatsu being live with hydrophones, and the two of us, and Mignon Jelly playing Native American flute. So that's a live jam as well. So Miguel Noya, it's really a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
It's a big pleasure for me to be here with these beautiful people and this amazing land. It's a great, great state. California is the closest to Venezuela, and we have discussed this before.
It's the closest of the United States to Venezuela.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just like spiritually, topographically.
It has to deal with the view, the landscapes. Some landscapes are really closed sometimes. Of course, different plants, different animals, but the look of the landscape, which is so powerful. Yeah. The blue sky and the heat.
Yeah, wonderful.
And warm people.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. All right. This is the time when we have hop up, pop up. Anybody from the community that has a rap, has something they want to share, and I actually want to start with Vince Darwood. Here's Amira Godwin. I want to start with Vince Darwood.
Okay.
Can you come
Okay.
after
Yeah,
him?
yeah.
And it looks like we've got Clint Willett, and this is great. But I want to start with Vince Darwood, who's been waiting patiently. This is exciting. Vince has taken over the curation of the art here at the Green Room Social Club, and he has, dare I say, engineered a coup d'etat. He's overthrown the Green Room with Alex Gray. Yeah, great.
Wow, thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Amy,
amazing.
I didn't mean
No,
to
you
bump
got
you there.
preempted. So tell us about your plans, your thoughts
Sure,
about what to
okay.
do with this canvas, and how you thought of this and how you did it. We're looking at Alex Gray on the wall here. I don't know if Garrett can show you what's here, but go.
I'll tell you what, I've been in art my whole life. I'm a painter, I'm a critic, I'm a coach, and I've even done some modeling, all kinds of stuff. And art's been a part of my passion most of my life. Art takes all kinds of forms. There's music, there's dance, there's sculpture, there's industrial design, which I spent many years doing. Engineering, in my mind, is an art. But I'm retired since January, so the opportunity came. I'm a rep for Impressionist artists, and I said to the Green Room, I said, why don't you have my Impressionist artist friend display? And then after that, I hung my art because they liked my art. And so Impressionist, Expressionist, and they'd say, Vince, you know all this about art. Why don't you just take over the curation? And I'd say, I'd be glad to.
Yeah, we're
It's
so
been
glad
pretty
you're
much
there.
a full-time job.
Yeah,
All right,
perfect.
so my goal here is to represent all the different art forms and in the different genres. So we've had impressionist, expressionist, we had expression, emotional art. It's, you know, like sometimes we call it scribble art or happy art or whatever.
Right.
And this is our inroad into the visionary art. Now, for those of you that don't know who Alex Gray is, he's made popular by the progressive metal band called Tool.
Whoa.
We all love Tool.
I didn't know.
Deep music. And Alex Gray is probably one of the most famous artists alive today. And his background is that of a mortician to study the body, but he, in his soul, is an artist. He was a performance artist before that, and he went into anatomy and started coming up with this art after copious amounts of lysergic acid. Big surprise there, as if y'all seen that painting of the Dr. Albert Hoffman, who is the inventor of that. Visionary art is new to a lot of people, but it really is a very, very ancient art form. Just about every religion in our world has its roots in visionary art, in a meditative state. And what they're reflecting is the Christian art has the halo, right? And if you look into Buddhist art, as well as Judaism, and you know, I'm frozen in a couple
Hinduism.
of the. Thank you. I was just
Amazing
going. I was
Hindu
just going.
art.
there.
Yeah.
But you know, you have that. You know, the painting of the Hindu with the chakras. It's all the same meditative, transcendental state that, with a little bit of concentration, we can find ourselves in. And it's very rare in my life, in my experience, to be able to be in that zone. I call it the beta state, if anybody's familiar with that, or to get into the theta state, to be able to have an out-of-body experience without the
Right.
boost, right?
Yeah, as Clint said famously, Clint Willett, who will be out with us in a minute, once you receive the memo, there's no point in going back there.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? It's funny because I used to study Emerson and Thoreau when I was a boy in high school, because public school in Detroit, it was all about business and survival. But I would escape with Emerson and Thoreau and read these lengthy meditative concentrations on art and nature, and it put me in a state, along with all of the supplements that we used to hustle, to the
You worked for GNC, you mean? Got it.
family programming. Well, I'd like to.
Awesome. You know, Vince, I can see we have a lot to talk about, and I think we should just have you on next season, and let's have you as a regular
Potentially.
featured guest. There's so
Yeah.
much here, and so this is way more than hop up, pop up.
Come on down to
And-
the green room. We got several different artists coming over the next several months. We're about to blow you away.
Awesome. So Vince Starwood from the Green Room, and
Yeah.
are we doing the opening this weekend, or is that on or off or not, with, Alex? Because Golden Road Gathering, by the way, starts
been a challenge.
tomorrow morning, and so Vince will be out there.
I will. We're
have
going to do
a
some
booth,
live painting.
Live painting.
And
Yeah, and
all kinds of stuff.
good.
We're going to have
So
an Alex Gray slideshow. Thank you for
thank
the opportunity
you. So
to
awesome.
share.
We'll see you at Golden Road. Thanks for coming on. We'll see you again. Yeah, we want to introduce Caitlin. But we decided we were just going to go as long as we wanted to go. We're going to put out snacks and celebrate the end of our second season. Clint's got something to talk about. Come on up, Clint Willett. Yeah, cool. Who is that masked dude with 3 hats and a baby? It was weird. It looked like Charlie, but okay. I was like, Charlie doesn't have an infant, does he? He absorbed it in the womb. Okay.
Greetings, everyone.
Hi, Clint. What's going on? What are you hopping up about?
I'm hopping up. Route 49 is the spine of 49. And Route 50, spine of 50. So on the 49, gratitude. Gratitude on the route, spine of 49. So for 31 years, our collective of nonprofits promotes and synergizes and alchemizes with healing collectives, art, music, anyone about truth, consciousness, art, ecology, environment, 7 generations and beyond. Honoring the last 7 generations, this present moment, and the next 7 generations. So what we're celebrating now, for the next 49 years
Ooh,
and beyond.
I want to go.
All right. Gratitude on the 49. 49 murals on the spine of 49. They can be a backyard shed, can be a barn. If it's a private property, it's your property.
That's right.
So that's what we're dropping, and we're celebrating anyone. Right now we're celebrating on Main Street, a new healing collective. Jessica Joy, really excited, Soul Sister, is just opening Heal, and it's just another great healer. So right here on Main Street in Placerville, really excited
You've
to celebrate.
been moving her and painting and meditating in there. So there's a beautiful healing space with Jessica Joy, who's been performing her healing as a student of Dr. Deb, as an incredible masseuse I witnessed this week. And she's got her own storefront opening across from Main Street Yoga. Go visit. Go say
visit.
hi.
Go
yeah,
visit.
fantastic.
Thank
Clint,
you. Bless.
thank you for your project. The 49, the spine of 49 murals of gratitude. What a canvas. We've got from Yosemite to Nevada City and beyond. So let's do it.
49 years and beyond.
Thanks
7
coming on.
generations. Bless.
Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your wisdom. Okay, that's it for today. We're gonna wrap it up with some thank yous. Amira's gonna come on. She'll talk a little bit about Ripe Area, I think, which it's been a beautiful season. We wanna thank so much our associate producer, Rena Wakefield. We wanna thank the Green Room Social Club, including Jen Ty, May Flores, Doug Neal, and our technical director, Garrett Hand. Come on board. Thank you so much. Sacred Roots and Pure Life have been funding stages and culture all through the region. We had flower arrangements from Planted on Main, which has been donated to us in exchange for a plug, and it's a beautiful store to beautify your homes. We've had such amazing guests this season, and we've had you as a constant guest host, which has been great. So what do you got this time?
This has been a full and heavy show, but I just want to go on the light, which is these are our cards, but there's 15 different ones because our amazing graphic designer, Verlander Design, and I have spent the hour with him pushing pixels, making these things happen. He's created the design for a magazine that I've been working on for 3 months and the program for the event. So I just want to celebrate his beautiful input and just note that these represent our key species that we're going to have kids making art and costumes and just have a parade to celebrate the salmon, the beaver, water, and raptors in particular, but many more creatures that are part of our riparian habitat. If we have time, I wanted to call up Caitlin Miller just to say hi and what she is doing to lead her theater improv group that are going to be singing and chanting and representing these creatures.
Awesome.
Hop up.
Come
hop
on up. So, Caitlin Miller, Crocker House Creative Arts, Crocker House Creative Arts Center. And she'll be performing this evening with Dogon here at the show and on June 2nd with Dogon. So, What do you got going?
Hi. We've been working with I have a little drama troupe that meets every Wednesday, and it's 20 kids from the community. And we've been teaching them a canon that you created, both of you created,
Right.
about the beavers and about the salmon, about the river, and it's
let's do a little for them. Let's try to think.
I know the acorn part.
Beaver,
Weaver, branches, twigs. Build your lodge and slow the creeks.
Beaver,
weaver, branches, twigs. Build your lodge and slow the creeks.
Let's hear you.
Beaver, weaver, branches, twigs. Build your lodge and slow the creeks.
And what's another one you were going to say?
Salmon, speckles, sandy shallows, pink and silver, where she wallows.
Wallows, rhyming with shallows.
Yeah.
That's a salmon. And there's also elderberry, berry, blue.
Tea will heal and sweeten you. So
and
it's fun.
We left one out.
Acorn, acorn, pound it down. Grind the meal and turn it round.
Let's try that all together.
Acorn, acorn, pound it down. Grind the meal and turn it round. See, the hand gestures help you learn the words.
So it's Amira's dream to have this pageant, which is a ritual, which is going to feature your kids, and any kids are welcome to come to the show and join in and make costumes day of. And the amazing Nia Henderson, our star senior in high school who's won all these scholarships and awards, and she's created the salmon that she showed you as a giant paper mache salmon to lead the parade. And we're going to have Doug Neal from Red Dirt Ruckus and Robbie Dean from the Rider Thieves doing marching band drumming, leading the parade, and grown-ups are in the parade too. And Dogon has been doing the music live on stage for the parade. And this will never have happened or be rehearsed until June 2nd at 3 o'clock. So we'll see you at Wakamatsu Farm, led by your kids.
Yeah, they're going to do it. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think it doesn't get better than that. Thanks for such a beautiful season. Thanks for joining us. Our theme music is by Grayson Howard. Our guests were Kimberly Shining Star Petrie and Dogon. And it's been a great season. Thanks for joining us. See you next year.